What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with yet another market update for recent sales on eBay. Most of these are loose graded, but I also do have some loose ungraded figures as well as some baggies. And I just thought some of the prices were interesting to talk about. And not a lot of surprises, but this Yoda went a lot higher than I expected. I had that one in my what to buy video. So we'll talk about all those and more. As always, thanks to my Patreon supporters. They get my videos early, 24 hours early access to all my videos. Patreon.com/actionfiguregrader is where you can go to sign up. All right, let's take a look and see what we got. The first one is another one that was on my what to buy video last week. I don't know when this video is going to air. It could be 2 weeks from now for all I know. But this is a CAS 80 grade Luke Farm Boy. And it was labeled as a brown hair, but as I talked about in that what to buy video, this is the dark brown hair Hong Kong. This is a lot harder to find. And I was speaking with that one time, who's a YouTuber, and he knows a lot about Farm Boys and Luke Bespins and Luke Jedis. And he said that, you know, in the video, I mentioned that these appeared only on 41 back Empire Strikes Back cards. He said he has also seen them and owned one for a 48 back transition card Return of the Jedi free Neonum offer. So he has a mint on card that has this dark brown Luke Farm Boy. So it was available for sure on those two cards. I'm sure there's potentially other cards, but otherwise it's pretty tough to find. It's a very, very tough to find variant. And it was graded 80. Again, it was not labeled dark brown hair, but that's how AFA labels it. And it's just a much, much more difficult figure to find than the lighter brown hair version of the Hong Kong Farm Boy. That one sold for $331. I hope one of you were able to buy that, because that is a bargain, in my opinion, for a dark brown hair Luke Farm Boy graded CAS 80. Next up, we had an AFA 85 Hong Kong First 12 R2-D2 Solid Dome. And in a second, I'm going to show you a CAS 80. I think it's an 80 or 80 plus. So you can see the difference in price. Admittedly, not the same grade, but it is two different grading companies. So I do like to show that where possible. And I've got some other examples later on in this video. But this first 12 was the 1977 date stamp for the Hong Kong R2-D2. Now, we documented in a recent video a 1978 date stamp that sold for over $800. And that's because that's really the body for the R5-D4, right? And in the factories, they look exactly the same. Just one of them has a 1977 date stamp, which is for R2, and one of them has the 1978 date stamp for R5-D4. So in this case, this is the correct 1977 date stamp. And that one was an 85. The other one was an 85 that had the 78 date stamp, and that's why that one sold so much. It sold for like $810 or something like that. This one sold for $513. So by no means chump change, all right? This is a lot of money, but it's an AFA 85 and certainly beautiful. Now here is that CAS 80 grade Hong Kong R2-D2, and this was also at auction. This one sold for $233.50, which I think is an appropriate, you know, that's appropriate discount. I think an AFA 80 might set you back slightly higher than that, but not too much more. I think that was a pretty good buy. I think that this was every bit of an 80, just looking at it. You know, it's not perfect, obviously, but CAS 80s are not going to be perfect. AFA 80s are not going to be perfect. UKG 80s are not going to be perfect. But I think that it's correctly graded in terms of what I would give it myself. And $233.50 seems like a pretty fair deal to me for a nice R2-D2 Solid Dome. Next up was a CAS 80 Plus Leia Organa. And this one, let's see, it doesn't have the label on there. And here it is. This is a Hong Kong. It doesn't say brown belt versus black belt. It looks like the black hair and black belt to me. That's just me looking at it. But pretty nice looking example there. $256. I think that's about what an AFA 80 Plus would sell for. Maybe slightly more, but not much more. So, you know, again, I wish that the grading companies would take a little more care to keep those capes on the shoulders better, but that's a really nice looking example for $256 plus $7 shipping. Next up, same seller also had a CAS 85 Plus standard Hong Kong Boba Fett. That one sold for $233. And I think this, you know, an 85 Plus with CAS is most comparable to an AFA 85. This one looks every bit of an 85 grade to me. You know, maybe one little slight scratch on the waistline there on the belt, but otherwise pretty clean. It's probably would grade an 85 with AFA, and that one again sold for $233 free shipping. An AFA 85 sells for, you know, let's call that $240 to $275, anywhere in that ballpark. So I think that's a pretty good deal, I think, for a CAS 85 Plus. I've got some Spanish figures now. We're going to start off with this Walrus Man. This one was a PvP Walrus Man, and it was graded UKG 85% with 85% subgrades. No COO, scar COO. So this one is the PvP version. And again, excuse my voice, I'm still a little bit sick. This one again sold for 80 pounds, which is about $100 plus shipping. I think that's a good buy. That's a really good deal in my opinion for a very high grade Spanish Walrus Man. Very easy to find. It's not particularly tough to find. These appeared not only on Palatoy cards, but also on U.S. Kenner cards for Made in Spain figures. So that's a pretty good deal, though, for a fairly common figure. Now let's dig into those Spanish POC and PvP figures that this seller had. I don't know this seller, but this was the POC Greyhead Yoda. And I was speaking with Dustin B., who is a friend of mine. He said that the Spanish POC Yoda came with either the Greyhead, which is more common, or the Apple Greenhead. And so this one is the Greyhead version, and it's more common. That one sold for $236, which is $294 US. I would have paid that all day long. That's a price I would have paid all day long. But interestingly, the PvP, which was lower grade, and I always considered the PvP easier to find because essentially the PvP is a Lily Letty figure. Same mold, just different paint. Obviously, it was painted in the Letty factory, but it's the exact same figure mold. So I was expecting this one to go for a little bit less, but this one ended up going for 488 pounds, which I thought was a big number, $609 US. So I was expecting that on the Spanish POC figure, which was higher grade, and in my opinion, that the Greyhead POC Yoda is tougher to find than the PvP. But that's just me talking. So what do I know? But clearly the market disagrees with me. So that was a beautiful figure, but it did sell for $610, which is a lot of money. Here is the POC Luke Bespin. It had the older style case, but that's a beautiful figure, and that's one I don't have in my collection. And that one sold for a bargain, in my opinion. I think it was overgraded. It was an 80%, but I think it was more like a 75, really. If you look at the utility belt, the lightsaber, and the hands, this is really like a 75, in my opinion. But still, a beautiful figure, and that sold for $218 US, 175 pounds. That's a good price. That's a price I'd pay all day long for it, overgraded or not. So now I've got some baggies. We got two different China baggies for the Hoth Stormtrooper. I think this is the ROTJ baggie, but don't quote me on that. I've been looking at baggies a lot lately. I just bought one. So this is the Return of the Jedi Kenner baggie made in China. And this one had some fogging and some scratches and things like that on the baggie. So this one only sold for $82. And then this one was very, very clean. You can see how much cleaner this one is. Not nearly as fogged up or scratchy. The ink on it was a little bit better. That one sold for $140 and change. So just interesting that both of those ended fairly, right around the same time, September 8th and September 10th. But a pretty significant price difference. You're talking a 60% price difference for the cleaner baggie. This same seller also had this Boosh baggie that was a made in Hong Kong baggie. This is the ESB D baggie. And shout out to Mike S., who is a baggie expert. I bid on this one, and before I did, I reached out to him because I thought ESB D baggies had crisp baggies. This was a soft baggie. He confirmed with me that a lot of the later ESB D baggies that were released as late as 1983 and 1984 used these soft baggies. So it was correct. It was factory correct. I bid on it, and I finished second, unfortunately, because this is one that you don't see for Boosh very often. Typically, it's the ROC Taiwan baggie, and then there's like an overstock baggie that I've seen a lot. That both of those are very common. But this made in Hong Kong on the ESB D baggie for Boosh is not easy to find. This is the first time I've seen one come up in a while, if ever. And so I bid on it, but I lost. I finished second. I bid $211. The winning bid was $213.50. So I took a consolation prize, and on the Deal or No Deal group for Facebook, a buddy of mine, Ian S., who runs GW Acrylic, he had this same baggie type, the ESB D baggie for Luke Skywalker Hoth. And so I did pick that one up. It looks pretty clean. I don't know how clean it is. It's probably like an 80 grade. But I paid $175 shipped for that one. And that was the same baggie that came in the Rebel Command Center box set. So not one you see that much, in my opinion. Usually it's the tape baggie for the Luke baggie. That Luke baggie. It's the tape made in Hong Kong baggie. But the heat-sealed ESB D baggie is the one I picked up from Ian. So thank you, Ian. That should be here this week. But it was my consolation prize after losing this Bush baggie. But that was a nice one. Same seller also had a Made in Macau Gamorrean Guard baggie. The writing on the baggie was pretty rough though, so this one sold for a pretty good deal, 93 bucks on that one. The Luke Jedi baggie, this was a pretty good. This is the baggie that usually comes for Bush. This ROC Made in Taiwan baggie. That's one I do have already for Bush. So this is the most common Bush baggie, but this one was also for the Luke Jedi Green Saber. That one sold for $127.50, which seems like a bargain to me. That's a really good price. Usually Luke Jedi baggies ungraded, they sell for like $200 to $250. So I thought that was a really good buy there. Next up was the final baggie, but this one was a graded baggie. This was the SWD baggie for Boba Fett. This is obviously the mail-away baggie. It includes the catalog and the mailer, but it did not have the box. So he had the baggie loose graded. Whoever submitted it had the baggie loose graded. It got an 85 grade. It was listed for $18.55. The best offer that was accepted on that one was $1,200. So Boba Fett baggies are very pricey, especially AFA 85 examples, especially for that mail-away first baggie for Boba Fett. So $1,200 took that one home. Next up, I got several different biker scouts that sold. This is an interesting one. So this one was the Hong Kong long face mask biker scout that I had in my What to Buy video. And a Patreon supporter did end up getting it, and he only paid 100 pounds for it, which is $124 plus another $30 shipping. So let's call that $150 for a UKG 85% made in Hong Kong baggie. 85.90 were the sub scores, and I feel pretty good about that. I'm glad he bought it. Congrats, Mike. But this one sold a little bit earlier, about a week earlier, and this was the exact same figure, but it had lower sub scores. It had 85.85. The other one that my friend Mike got was 85.90. And this one sold in an auction for 130 pounds, which is 162 US dollars. So not even accounting for shipping, my friend Michael got it for less than what this one sold for with a higher subgrade. So congrats, Michael. I think you got a great deal on that one, and I was glad to help. And then finally, the final biker scout figure before we dig into some others is this one. This was the Taiwan long face mask version. So this one went for a lot of money. It sold for $180.50. It was CAS 85 grade. So 3 different biker scouts all sold, 2 Hong Kongs and 1 Taiwan, with the Taiwan going for the most. But this was a beautiful figure. Look how white and beautiful that figure is. I'd pay $200 all day long for that. So that was a good buy at $180. Next up was a UKG 90% Ramba, last 17. That was a beauty. That one sold for 230 pounds, which is $286. I would have paid that all day long for a 90 grade gold level, last 17. And let's see. Next up, we had a CAS Star Wars. This one was double encased with the coin. The coin got an AFA 85 plus. The figure got an AFA 80 plus. So they were each encased and then encased again for good measure. So this one will make it through the world apocalypse, the zombie apocalypse, because it's double encased. That one sold for $400 plus $19 shipping. Next up is that Droids Size from that I had in my What to Buy video. I was thinking it would sell for $650, and that shows you how little I know. It sold for $814, but in all fairness, it was near mint plus. This thing would probably get an 85 grade. And very, very expensive figure as it is. Mint on card, I've seen as high as $2,000. But loose graded $1,100 to $1,200 all day long. So I think $813 for that is very fair. And then finally, I've got one Polish bootleg, a second gen silver stormtrooper from 1990, 1991-ish. That one sold for 50 pounds, one bid only, which is $62. I thought that was a great buy for a second gen Hoth stormtrooper. That's a really low price, in my opinion, for one that was in really clean condition. The silver had hardly any wear on it on that one. So good buy on that one. So anyway, that's all I really had for this video. I hope you enjoyed looking at loose figures, baggies, and loose graded figures. Thanks again, and I'll be back soon.